Okay, welcome back everyone. We are going on the final stretch of this day. So without further ado, let's get to the next talk. Please welcome Martin, who will talk about the evolution of extortion in cloud environments. Give a warm welcome.
Good afternoon. In 2018, I came across this POC from Kevin Mitnick. He was showcasing ransomware in cloud, in Office 365, in Exchange Online. And he showcased it like that there is a phishing email with a link to the user, and if user clicks on the link, now we would call it like an illicit consent grant. So the user is asked to give consent to the malicious application, which receives access to his mailbox. And once it's done, in the mailbox, all the emails are encrypted. And then lands a ransom note saying like, hey, you have been encrypted, and if you want your data back, you need to pay. And in that time, 2018, I was like, whoa, I didn't know that something like this is possible. But what's strange, it's like that since the time, 8 years has passed, and we don't see any ransomware incidents in cloud, in Office 365. Which is strange because we mostly, like last 9 years, we are doing a lot of incident response for the ransomware attacks. And I was wondering why it's possible that we haven't seen the ransomware attacks in the cloud. And because I like to explore the stuff, and I need to, I believe that if I am supposed to do a good defense or protection or incident response, I need to know the techniques and tactics of the attackers. So I said, okay, let's imagine I'm the attacker, and my goal is to do ransomware in the cloud. How would I do it? And I just want to say I'm defender all the time, and if I will be speaking of me as an attacker in this talk, it's just for better entertainment of the talk, not that I would like to guide someone to commit a crime. So the first thing is if it's worth it to do the ransomware. Our first ransomware incident response, we did, the victim paid something like 1,000 euros, the ransom. It was so tiny, it was nothing. And now if we do incident response, and the attackers, they usually ask amounts like 1 million euros or something around that. And even if there is some negotiation, then the victims, if they have to pay and they decide to pay, they pay hundreds of thousands of euros. So it's a lot of money, and especially if we take in account that the attack takes like 1 man day or 2 man days. It's like a little of work for a lot of money. And as well, those attackers are usually from countries which are less developed and less economically powerful. So for them, it's like 2 times, 4 times much more money than for us. So by my opinion, it's worth doing the ransomware for that money, for the attackers. But then the thing is, if it's technically possible. So in Office 365, we have the following data. We have emails in Exchange Online, we have files on OneDrive, SharePoint Online, we have teams, they split the data between Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, and then we have Azure, which we see that the companies, my context, we are usually helping companies between 100 employees up to 1,000 employees. That's my context, like medium-sized companies. Many of you do enterprise or something. Of course, those stories will be different. But that mid-sized companies, they usually use Azure for some VMs, some storage accounts, or some SQL databases. So one of those first steps the attackers do after the full compromise is that they exfiltrate some data. And I think that to do exfiltration from Office 365 is easier than to exfiltrate data from the on-premise environment, because it keeps the attackers under the radar. It's more low profile than to do it on-premise. Those medium-sized companies, they base their defense on EDR systems or antivirus systems which are host-based. And as well, then they have some next-gen firewall on the perimeter. But what they cover and monitor is the on-premise infrastructure. But with the cloud, the data sits in the cloud, and they are blind. It's not like that there wouldn't be tools, but they don't use those tools or they don't follow it. And as well, the data centers have better connectivity than the on-premise. So the attackers on the on-premise, they usually take like tens of gigabytes of data, but with the cloud, it's easy to download like everything. And if I would have to choose some tools or how to do it, I would use some legit tool. Because why to create your own tools if you can use a product which is made to back up the data? Backup of the data is an exfiltration of the data if the attacker does it. And as well, I would use some tool which the victim already uses. Because then I don't need to register a new enterprise application. I will just add service principals, credentials, secret, or certificate to the existing application. So even though it would be less suspicious for the victim. And I'm definitely not the only one thinking like that, because Octotempest, the threat actors, they have been using it for 3 years at least. And once the data are exfiltrated, there can be a first extortion. Ask the victim to pay for not releasing the exfiltrated data. And there is already a threat actor called Blackfile, which asks for hundreds of thousands of euros for not releasing the data. So it's like a checkpoint. It's something which the attacker can already monetize. And then they can like sell it to some sellers on some forums. But if after the talk, someone of you have some experience, I would be very curious if you think that the data has some value to some random buyers. For the victim, not to publish the data, it's like it has value. But who is going to buy 2 terabytes of data of some company? Because their competitors shouldn't buy it. It would be a crime. And what value does it have for some random companies? So I'm curious about your experience, what you have. If we are speaking, if you can do ransomware on premise and earn $1 million, that's money. If you are going to sell the data for $1,000, that's not money for the attackers. So then you need to go and start destroying or encrypting the data in the cloud. And if I will look on what Kevin Mitnick did, he cheated. He cheated a little bit. It was just a show. It was proof of concept. Because the thing is that Exchange Online don't give you API to modify messages. It just gives you API to download mails, delete mails, upload new emails. And that's what he did. He downloaded the emails, encrypted them locally, and deleted the emails on Exchange Online and uploaded the encrypted variant. And it can be seen from the date and time which was changing on the emails. And the problem of this method is that it's not scalable. You can do it for 100 emails, but you cannot do it for 50 gigabytes of mailbox. And if the company has 700 mailboxes, 7,000 mailboxes, it would take like weeks. But someone would notice that something is happening. And as well, Exchange Online has several recycle bins, several levels of recycle bins. So the victims would be able to stop the attacker and then recover the emails from the recycle bins. So we need to have some different way how to approach it. And this is what I would do. So firstly, how is it with the recycle bin? So you delete the emails, then the emails are in the trash bin. You empty the trash bin. And then the mail items will be in a secondary trash bin. So you delete them from that, and you would expect that they are hard deleted, but they are not, because they are hidden from GUI. But if you will go to the API as a global admin, you can still recover the emails. So this is not very well usable, like if you want to do like a real attack and earn like real money. So now when the admin is connected, he can find the recoverable items. There will be just those 2 emails we have deleted. And with next PowerShell command, they will be recovered. So what could be a better method? Like we are speaking about post-breach activity, because we are expecting that the attackers have full access to that tenant. One thing is that we need to disable that last recycle bin, that all the emails will be hard deleted. And then because I like to misuse functionalities, sorry, I will skip that. I like to misuse functionalities because if I'm misusing bugs, the problem is that the bug will be patched and I will be out without like methods or tools. But if I misuse a functionality, the good thing is that it will be working for few more years. So one functionality which I think could be misused is retention policies. Because we can specify a retention policy which says that each email should be deleted 1 day after receiving that email. And we can apply it to all the mailboxes. And then we will instruct Microsoft Assistant to start applying the retention policy on the mailboxes. And then the mails will be gone. And it won't be record, you know what. And what's nice about that is as well, I think that, just imagine the medium-sized company, where is an IT guy who knows the basic administration. And if something like this starts to be happening, he will be alerted that the emails are missing. He will start to do he will investigate the issue, but he is not aware of something like retention policies. It will take him a couple of hours before he will realize how so that the emails are disappearing. And then it will take some more time to realize how to stop that, how to stop propagating that retention policy. And this time can be even extended with some other feature, which I will come along later. So that's a possibility how to get rid of the emails. Of course, with the ransomware on-premise, the thing is that you provide, with one exe file, you encrypt everything, and with another exe file, you decrypt everything. And for the victims, it's easy to decrypt the files, and the environment is in the state like it was before the encryption. With this approach, it would be, the business model would be more like we backup everything as an attackers, delete the data, and actually to the victim sell the backup. That if they will pay, you will provide them with the storage where will be the backup, and they will be able to use, for example, that VM or the backup product to do the full restore of that. So with OneDrive, again, like encryption is problematic because there is no API to do encryption in place in the cloud. So, and then there is the version history. You can just download the data, encrypt them, and re-upload them. That's not very useful, and as well there's soft delete and some trash bins. But Microsoft with the documentation gives us some hint that we can delete the OneDrive for the user, and Microsoft says that it's permanently deleted and it can be restored. In exception of having a backup somewhere and restoring the OneDrive. And as well, the thing is that you will delete the OneDrive with just one API call. You will get rid of the whole OneDrive of a user. So it's a quick. You don't have to go file by file, which can take, again, few days. With SharePoint, the situation should be similar, but it's different that Microsoft writes that he has backups for 14 prior days. But the thing is that by the article, which is the last one, and some talks with my friends, they all shared the experience that even they asked Microsoft to recover some data from the SharePoint, Microsoft wasn't able to help them. But I'm curious because that's not a statistically important. If someone of you have some other experience or the same experience, I would be very glad if you could share it with me after the talk, so I have more information, if this is feasible and it could happen or it's not. And another thing is that every customer has some backups, and with ransomware on-premise, the thing is that the attackers know that or expect that the victims, they have backup, they have to find it and destroy it. And with Office 365, it should be the same. But what was curious for me that, for example, for us, the medium-sized companies, they usually do those backups. Yesterday, I spoke with some friends, and they told me that, for example, in enterprise, they don't do those backups because they think it's not important because it's not possible that Microsoft would lose the data. I don't know. So maybe in some cases we don't need to find those backups, and in some cases we need to find those backups. Of course, the attackers maybe won't be able to delete the backups because they are usually stored somewhere on premise. But maybe the defenders, they can do some mistake. For example, they will back up the data to some storage account within the same tenant, like to some Azure subscription which is below the tenant which we have breached. Or they will have it on premise, but they will connect the server to Azure Arc. And if they will do it without other hardening, we control Entra ID, we control the subscriptions, so we can misuse the Azure Arc to instruct the backup server to give us access to it, for example, by running AnyDesk, connecting there, having a new administrator, and deleting all the backups. Or misuse, for example, live response from Defender. So there are some ways how to pivot to the on-premise and destroy the legit backups. And then what's not very convenient for the attackers is cache on workstations, because if there is a Samba share on on-premise, then all the data are just on the Samba share. But if we have OneDrive, the data has multiple copies because each workstation or laptop of that user has local copies of OneDrive files, SharePoint files. And as well, in Outlook, there is a cache of the emails. And in some incidents or ransomware incidents on-premise, we had to touch those OST caches to recover the data for the customers because they didn't want to pay the ransom, they didn't have anything left, so they were restoring or reconstructing data from the caches. And more data the attackers will destroy, the higher chance that they will get a reward for that. So again, what to do? One of those things which was the first thought, was to use a legit tool like with Intune and wipe those devices. And I wasn't the only one thinking about it, because a few months ago, the threat actors during the attack on Striker, they wiped like 50,000 devices, and it worked out. So, but now it's not original. We could find something like more entertaining. So I would be thinking about it like, thanks to the EU and GDPR, what we have is that BitLocker is quite common. It's with every newly shipped computer, BitLocker is usually active. So what we can do is that the BitLocker recovery keys are being stored in Entra ID. And as an attackers, we can dump that database of those BitLocker keys, BitLocker recovery keys. So we will have all the recovery keys for the BitLocker. That's step number one. Then, if those devices are managed by Intune, we will run a script on all of those devices, and the script will tell those devices to do a forced BitLocker recovery, which means that the only way how to unlock the BitLocker will be the BitLocker recovery key. The TPM will not work, so the computers will be locked out. And then the third step will be that we will delete all the devices from the Entra portal. So the defenders, when will reach the Entra portal later on, they will not be able to find those BitLocker recovery keys. So you can sell them a database of those BitLocker recovery keys, which is like quite a nice and quick business, because it will be an Excel, it will be working, they will distribute it to the users, and the users will recover their data, and everything will be like it was before. So over here, when the script will be run on the station, it will look like this, because it will say forced BitLocker recovery and forced restart immediately, and then the computer is locked. And as I said, you will take all the device objects and just delete them. Sorry. Because I was doing this research like a year ago, there wasn't a functionality which was called backup and recovery for Entra ID, which is for free, like if you have Entra P1, but I think it's like a necessity. It's turned on by default, and it does that each day. It makes a snapshot of Entra ID and gives the defenders availability or possibility to recover the items. but unfortunately for victims and good for the attackers, the device objects are not included. So the defenders will be able to delete the objects, and it won't be recoverable. So the BitLocker keys will be gone if the defenders don't have the BitLocker keys in AD, or they dump them or backup them through some other channel. But even if they would do, we can still do some magic like this. We don't need to, for example, force that just the key recovery, but we can, with the script, generate some random keys and change those keys, protect those keys to reach the Entra ID, and then to block those devices. So even the defenders would have the backup of those recovery keys, they would be invalid. It's about like the imagination of the attackers. And what is a new thing which we didn't have on-premise is that we can kick out the defenders from the cloud environment. With on-premise ransomware, attackers breach on-premise environment, defenders came on spot, unplug the router, defenders are out, and attackers are out, and defenders are in control of that environment. But with cloud, there is no physical place where the defenders would go. So if the attackers, they breach the Entra ID environment, they can create a new global admin and revoke all of those old privileged accounts. And then they can implement new conditional access policies, which will, for example, block login from all IPs except their IP, or for all users except their new user. So the defenders will be locked out from the environment for some time. And how long it will take, that depends on multiple aspects. I have been speaking with friends, and firstly, they told me that this is already happening, that the attackers are doing this step. The Microsoft Dart team is aware of it, and they regularly solve it, or are solving it. But the thing is that it depends how much money you spend with Microsoft and how good contacts you have, because you can have control over your tenant in 1 hour, 2 hours, or it can take several days before you will get control over your tenant again. And each hour the defenders are outside of the tenant is good or beneficial for the attackers, because you can do whatever you want and no one's going to stop you during the time. So, the defenders are seeing how the emails are being deleted, OneDrives are being deleted, SharePoint is being deleted, but they cannot do anything with that. They are just waiting for Microsoft to help them restore the access to their tenant. And the things can get more creative, because again, unlike some functionality, and I was thinking that, for example, Dart team, what I have heard, so the Dart team is aware of some tricks of those attackers, but if those attackers will be more playful, they can, for example, play not just one interchange between the Dart team, but maybe the Dart team will miss some backdoors which the attackers will implement in the environment, and they will be able to get back, kick out the defenders again, Dart team will come again, do inspection. So the attackers will be receiving multiple hours. So what, for example, looks interesting for me is let's imagine that the attackers later on will take over the BitLocker, break-glass admin, and what they will do, that they will go to the Power Automate, and they will make a new automation. And for example, they will make a webhook, which if it will, I will just skip it. If it will be called, then the webhook will call with the privileges of the break-glass admin a graph call, which will create a temporary access password for a user, which will be provided by the attackers. And the response will be returned to the attackers. So actually, it's like a backdoor. The attackers have a webhook. They can call it for any user they want, and they will receive a temporary access password, and they can access that user, and because temporary access password is like MFA, with MFA claim, so it will be probably functional for some time. And again, if the defender is not aware of something like Power Automate, it will take them some time before they will realize how the attackers are coming back to the environment. So then this is the Power Automate. And how to use that webhook is just we will get the URL, the body, which we will provide the user we want temporary access password for, and we will just call it, and we will receive the temporary access password for that user. And then there is the stuff with the Azure resources. And what we see from the medium-sized companies, their Azure resources are configured in a really bad way many times. That, you know, they can be deleted. The storage accounts, databases, they can be deleted. They are not being backed up at all. So they can be deleted, and the customer or the victim can be without any data in the Azure. And even if they are deleted, if they are backed up, many times the backup vaults or recovery vaults are configured wrongly. They can be like emptied as well. So many medium-sized companies are in danger of losing the data in the Azure. And to wrap it up. So the steps are usually you would do exfiltration, because then the attackers has already some way of monetizing something, even if they are stopped in the later stages. Then you need to destruct the backups, because it's something the defenders will not notice probably. Then you cut the defenders from the Entra portal, and then you start to deleting the data, because the deletion of the data, or like the production data, is something you don't need a monitoring system to realize it, because you have users, and the users will start to complain that they are starting to miss some data. And in that case, even the defenders would like to do something with that, they won't be able, because they will be cut off from the environment already. And then to send the poisoning pills to the workstation to like block the caches which are there. So in reality, it's like what we see, what's possible, like technically, what's possible to happen. I think that those like ransomware attacks in the cloud, they are not. I don't think they will happen anytime soon, because it's more work than to do a ransomware on premise. There is still so many victims for ransomware on premise, and the attackers can gain more money from ransomware on-premise. And as well, the business model of ransomware on-premise is good, that it's like a good user experience for the victims. They are provided with a decryptor, exe file, and everything is restored in a matter of minutes. But with that cloud, you know, it would still be a mess, because the devices would be deleted, OneDrives would be deleted, and they would need to restore all the data from the backups, and it would take them days. But still, there are some problems that can happen. For example, if someone kicks the defenders outside of the environment and, for example, implements a new conditional access policy which will block everyone from logging in. Actually, if the company has 700 users, no one will be able to work with the Entra, with the email, OneDrive, whatever, till the conditional access policy is removed. The attackers will not make any money on that. It will be just a denial of service. It will hurt the company. And even, for example, the deletion of some resources in Azure subscription, it will hurt. But the thing is that the attackers usually do stuff to make money. So they need to find out how to make money, how to monetize the stuff. It's possible that maybe Microsoft has something in a sleeve, that maybe they have some unofficial backups, but still, once they will reveal that they have some backups or some way how to restore some data, the attackers can adapt to it. The same way, like if you have a decryptor on some ransomware, because the ransomware contains some logical error, you need to keep it like as a private knowledge. Otherwise, once it's published, the attackers, they will fix the ransomware. Yeah, and with the defense, so I would say like it's a good to back up the Office 365 data, to do a review of the configuration of the Azure resources, to as well save the configuration of the Azure resources, because even that there are no data, but for example, to have deleted some resources, it would be very hard to redeploy those resources. There are two cases, like medium-sized companies, they do every creation of resources by hand. But on the other side, enterprise does it like code as infrastructure as a code. So for example, for them it's not such an issue. And then it's about tiering and monitoring, because to have monitoring for the events which are happening in the cloud. Because if the medium-sized companies are stuck with just host-based and network-based detection agents and logging, they are missing a lot of stuff which is going in cloud. And that's all. Thank you very much.